The last topic for this presentation will address the government's policy toward Native Americans in the era of the early Republic. During Washington's administration, his Secretary of War, Henry Knox, embarked on a policy essentially aimed at assimilating Indians into American society. Attempts were made with the Iroquois and Cherokee, among others. This image shows a Cherokee settlement in the southeast where many did assimilate. However, at the root of this set of policies was the belief American culture was superior to that of indigenous peoples. This Creek House from 1791 demonstrates how many Native Americans living in the East used a combination of traditional and European items in their daily lives. This was also true for Indians living farther west, but many white settlers saw the presence of Native Americans on the land in the Ohio Valley as a barrier to American success. Even though the Northwest Territory was organized by land ordinances under the Articles of Confederation, there was a great deal of violence between pioneers and Native Americans living in the Old Northwest, as the United States government had never negotiated for access to the land. On 2 occasions, Indians defeated American forces. In one clash, over 600 American soldiers died. As mentioned earlier, the British, in defiance of the Treaty of Paris, continued to occupy several forts in the Northwest and supplied Native Americans with their efforts to resist the Americans. However, in 1794, under the leadership of General Mad Anthony Wayne, Indians living in the Ohio Valley were soundly defeated at the Battle of Fallen Timbers. This map identifies Indian land cessions from the last half of the 18th century. An arrow points to the location of the Battle of Fallen Timbers, which took place just outside of Toledo. Following this defeat, in 1795 the Shawnee and several other tribes of the Ohio Valley signed the Treaty of Grenville. The treaty ceded to the United States government most of the modern-day state of Ohio and part of Indiana. In return, the signers received a lump sum of money and an annual annuity. The area circled here roughly shows the territory ceded to the United States under the terms of the treaty. The Treaty of Grenville was important to the United States because it established the Americans as the dominant power in the region and opened the Ohio Valley to settlement. It was also important to Native Americans as they received something they had been seeking for years. The United States formally accepted the principle of Indian sovereignty by virtue of residence over all lands Native peoples had not ceded. Many important issues were discussed in this presentation, which can now be reviewed. Several wide-ranging events from the presidencies of Washington and Adams were addressed in this presentation. However, maybe the most important concept to consider involves the idea of how to best divide governmental power. For example, should the national government be allowed to pass legislation like the Alien and Sedition Acts? What if it's wartime? What if there isn't a war? Does the Bill of Rights go far enough or too far toward protecting civil liberties? How strong should the central government be in relation to the states? These were important issues over 200 years ago. But do you know what? They continue to be important today. This concludes lecture number 8. I hope this information has been thought-provoking. The next few slides will include links to websites offering additional information as well as a list of sources used to develop this presentation. Have a great day.